My name is Bram. I am a co-founder of 3D Hubs, and 3D Hubs is an online platform that connects 3D printer owners with people who want to print. I see some colleagues of mine in the room, Xenia and Simona, so later you can ask them questions also about the company. So I'll talk about how I ended up in 3D printing and why I started 3D Hubs. And in the second part of my presentation, I'll talk about collaboration in 3D printing and how that's changing how we design and manufacture products. So when I was in high school, I really wanted to become a car designer. That was my dream. This was a sketch I made when I was a lot younger. I even moved to Italy because I believed learning Italian would increase my chances of landing a job in that space. A bit ignorant maybe. I was 18 back then, and I lived for a year in this 3,000-year-old building in Perugia, Italy, which was really a great time. After that, I started studying industrial design at Delft University, and in Delft they expect you to design more than just cars. Unfortunately, in the beginning, I only wanted to design cars, but later on I got excited about designing other things, such as this laptop accessory, which I designed about 10 years ago, and I was able to sell to a large company and make quite some money off it. So that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And in Delft, you don't only learn how to create nice shapes, but you also learn how products are manufactured. And most products are made in Asia. They're made with injection molding. A lot of products you use daily are made on these machines. And what happens is that molten plastic is injected into metal molds. And then the plastic hardens out and you have a product. But what's really a downside of that technology is that because it has to fit into a mold, the amount of shapes you can make is very limited. So your design freedom is very limited. But luckily, 8 years ago, I learned about 3D printing, and this was really a pivotal moment in my career because I understood that because of the layer-wise structure of 3D printing, your design freedom is almost unlimited. Almost any shape that you can imagine you can make with 3D printers. So I got so excited about this that I stalled my car design career and went on in 3D printing. And I started my career at a company called Freedom of Creation. It's a really cool company. They're here in Amsterdam, and they were the first company in the world to use 3D printing to create consumer products. Most people don't know is that 3D printing has been around for over 30 years, but it's always for a long time been used by the industry. Printers were hidden in factories, consumers didn't see it. And then these guys said already 15 years ago, let's use this technology to create consumer products, actual end products, not prototypes, not tools, actual things people can use. So we were the first to create 3D printed smartphone cases, for example. And Apple, they saw this and they got so excited, they decided to sell it in many Apple stores around the world. My co-founder Brian, who I started 3D Hubs with, I also worked with at Freedom of Creation. And he designed these headphones which take your music playlist and automatically display your favorite artists in 3D on the headphone. So this is an example of mass customization, which is possible thanks to 3D printing. Each product can be unique because you don't have to invest in an expensive mold. You just create a digital file and you send it to the printer. And we had a lighting collection, which is probably our most successful product collection. It made it to the cover of Time magazine, New York Times, got a lot of awards. And again, these kind of shapes you cannot produce in any other way than with 3D printing. And besides the design freedom that I just showed you, 3D printing is a digital manufacturing technology, and that means it also has other benefits, especially around the way how we manufacture and distribute products in the world, and really large implications for the supply chain. And this is how products were manufactured about 150 years ago. They were made by hand, so it was not a very scalable model. But what I liked about it is that products were only made after a customer placed an order. So there was not much stock, not much overproduction. And the customers lived very close, so there was very little transport. Then we got the industrial revolutions and the assembly lines. And now, because of globalization and the endless quest for cheap labor, we've moved over most production to Asia. And the result of that is this, that we need large container ships to sail the world and bring these products to the customer. And it doesn't feel really efficient, especially not if you realize that container ships emit more carbon emissions than all cars in the world combined. And with mass production, as the word already tells you, products are made in very large quantities. Millions of products are really made before even one is sold. And the estimates are that 30% of those products has to be thrown away because nobody wants to buy it. So I believe in a different future for manufacturing. One where products are made locally and on demand instead of far away and in large quantities. And I believe that 3D printers have the best shot at making this future a reality. Because with 3D printers you can make millions of different products at the push of a button in any location in the world. So about 2 years ago, Brian and I, we quit our jobs at Freedom of Creation to really pursue this future for manufacturing. And we started 3D Hubs. So the idea was really simple. Just connect people with a 3D printing need to a nearby 3D printer owner. I'm going to the computer. And the opportunity that we saw is that there's about 200,000 3D printers out there, but on average they're sitting idle about 90% of the time. So to us it made a lot of sense to connect all that idle 3D print capacity in the world into one online platform and give everyone local access to this awesome technology. So one of the first things that you do when you start a new company, of course, is create a video and show the world what you want to achieve. And we want to show how much fun it would be if people would start sharing their 3D printer. So you can imagine that after seeing this video back then, some people advised us to pivot to a dating site. But luckily we didn't, because now 2 years later we have the world's largest network of 3D printers. We have 20,000 3D printers connected in over 150 countries, which is more than McDonald's. And we calculated with some public data that we now provide over 1 billion people in the world with access to 3D printing within 10 miles of their home. So it's really hyper-local production. In Amsterdam alone, there are over 100 locations where you can get something made within 2 days. So this quick screen capture of our website shows how easy it can be just to order something locally. So you upload a design, you can either create something yourself or you find something that someone has already created. Then you fill out your address. In this case, this was used for a presentation in New York. Sorry, I didn't update it. And then you see all the 3D print locations in your area. You see the distance to where you are, you see the ratings of previous customers, and you get a real-time price for your design at each location. And then you just select material, color, whether you want to pick up the product or have it shipped. And from there on, it's just a regular e-commerce checkout process. So the company has grown fast in 2 years. We've raised $4.5 million in venture capital. We now have an office in New York and Amsterdam. I spent half my time in New York. And we expanded the team to 35 amazing people. As I said, 2 of them are here today. who as a Christmas present we got 3D scanned and printed, of which this is the result. Okay, so let's talk about collaboration in 3D printing. I really believe that collaboration in 3D printing can change the way how we design and manufacture products in the world. And I'll show that based on 3 categories. I divided it into 3 categories. There's the actual design process of objects that will be 3D printed. Then there's the development of 3D printers. And then there's the making of actual prints. So let's start with design. Design in 3D printing starts with computer-aided design, CAD software. Well-known programs are AutoCAD, SolidWorks. And what's really cool is that a few months ago a company launched which allows anyone in the world to work in a CAD file from their browser at the same time. So it means that people can collaborate on one design, on one file in very high detail, just from their browser, from their smartphone, from their iPad. So it's basically Google Docs for CAD. And I think this can really kickstart a lot of innovation. If people can collaborate in this way, and you can collect, specialists in different fields, to work this way. So this is the video that this company called Onshape created a few months ago when they launched this software.
Change is coming. Designers, engineers, we build the future, and we've been successful. The world has changed a lot. Our design process has evolved along with it. Today, we're teams of specialists brought together by our talent more than our geography, working together to create products in different time zones. And yet, while we've evolved, our tools have stayed the same. We waste too much time managing our software, spending money on new versions, updating expensive licenses, wasting resources that could be turned into better work. Traditional CAD gets in the way when it should empower us. Remember when CAD was fun? Let's reinvent CAD with a clean sheet of paper. Let's make CAD work for us again. Imagine a new generation of CAD that works the way we do. CAD in the cloud, available on your tablet, on your phone, wherever and whenever inspiration strikes. CAD that brings teams together to create work greater than the sum of its parts. A flexible solution that always fits your bottom line, even as your team changes shape. A solution that automatically updates itself to reflect the state of the art. Seamlessly, every time you log on. A CAD built by pros, for pros, from a team with CAD in its blood. The world deserves a new generation of CAD. Welcome to the future of CAD.
So that's collaboration when it comes to the actual design of objects, but there's also a lot of collaboration when it comes to sharing of objects. Most well-known example is called Thingiverse. It's a website where anyone who has a 3D printable file can just share it with the rest of the world. And then other people, also basically anyone in the world, can just download them for free. So far, many tens of thousands of designers have already done this, and there are 700,000 3D printable designs available there for free. This is quite interesting, right? What kind of dynamic this creates when designers decide to put out their IP for free and for everyone to iterate on top of it. How consumer brands are going to deal with that when traditionally their design IP is really a large part of their value proposition. I think it's going to be really interesting. There's a very bottom-up approach to design here and to product creation. Because now we started a collaboration with them, which means that even if you don't own a 3D printer, you can tap into our production network of 20,000 printers around the world. So it means you can have 700,000 designs made at 20,000 locations in the world. How are corporations going to compete with that? Well, one consumer brand that I think does this really well is Fairphone. They're a smartphone manufacturer here in Amsterdam. And they decided to launch a collection of 3D printed smartphone cases. And instead of doing the designs themselves, they said, let's have our community make the designs. And within 10 days, they commercialized 10 community designs. And that speed is only possible with 3D printing, right? So you just create a digital file, then you print it, you make some photos, you put a price tag on it, and you put it online. So this was, there was one designer called Joris, here also from Amsterdam, who engineered the cases to make sure they would fit nicely around the smartphone. And he created this video when we launched. Yeah, so we did the production of these cases, and since we started this partnership about a year ago, over 5,000 cases were ordered and they were produced across 300 of our locations. So it's really an unprecedented use case of distributed manufacturing. And these were the designs that the community created, by the way. There's also a collaboration when it comes to the development of the actual 3D printers. And it started about 7 years ago when the professor on the left, called Adrian Boyer, created a design of a very simple 3D printer that could just sit on your desktop. And instead of starting to sell that printer, what he did is he just open sourced the design. So he made it available to anyone. And his thought was that there would be a lot more innovation if people would collaborate on the development, and they would really, become more accurate, faster, more affordable in a much shorter amount of time. And what's extra cool about this printer is that it can partly reproduce itself. So more than 50% of the parts on this printer can be made by other printers. So let's say you want to make one, you can go to someone in your neighborhood who has one, and you can ask, can you make me the 3D printed parts for this? Then you go to the DIY store, you buy the other parts, and then you make yourself a 3D printer. So it's a bit science fiction, reproducing robots. And that's also why on the picture you see the parent printer and the child, which was created by the parent. And his thought was right, because this wrap-up movement, it's called, has really enabled very fast development, very much innovation in the development of desktop 3D printers. A well-known example of that today is Ultimaker, is a Dutch company. Then there's also collaboration on our platform. 3D Hubs has a very popular forum called Talk, and the 3D printing community comes together there on that forum and helps each other to make successful prints, to build their 3D printers successfully. So here's one example. As you can see, someone's not able to build successful prints, and what you immediately get is a lot of people commenting, helping out, and this is really great. This is really a community feel to manufacturing. So that's collaboration when it comes to 3D printers, and then there's also collaboration when it comes to 3D prints, and that's what we as 3D Hubs do. We allow people to open up their printer to other people in the neighborhood. When we just started, in the first week, we got this order in, the first order we got. And it was placed by the guy on the left called Ken, and he needed a case for his GoPro camera. So he browsed on Amazon, he could find one for $45, and he would have to wait a week because it was shipped from the US. Instead, he found a file of a case for the GoPro camera on Thingiverse, and through us, he was connected to the 14-year-old kid on the right called Ruben, who was lucky enough to get a printer from his father for Christmas. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. Well, Ruben, of course, you know, he's in school, he has lots of time. So he printed the case the same day for 15 bucks. And Ken, he lived on, you know, within biking distance, so he came to pick up the part the same evening. And he couldn't leave without getting a demonstration of the 3D printer. So the part was made cheaper, faster, and it's a completely different consumer experience. So when we saw this first order, you know, we really knew that we were onto something. And we've seen, since we started, there's over 100,000 3D prints being ordered through our platform. So we've seen a lot more of these examples. This is pretty cool. These were some students from Eindhoven University, design students. They had a project deadline. They had to create a prototype of a bike that they designed. And the university had some 3D printers, but they were, because of the project deadline, they were totally short of capacity. So this guy had a 3D printer, and he created that prototype for them, and also really took some nice pictures. And what's also nice about this bike is that desktop 3D printers and the materials have developed so fast that you can not only print plastic, but you can also print wood, for example. So there's wooden parts, and there's also metal parts, which you can all print on your desktop today. It's another cool project where the community, the 3D printing community globally work together. This is a pavilion made out of 4,000 3D printed blocks, and each block is different, and there are hundreds of 3D printer owners who helped to make this, this possible. And another well-known example in the industry is Enable. There are 3D printed prosthetic hands. You can make them for around $100, where traditionally prosthetic hands cost about $10,000. So there's a whole community of volunteers who both work to make this design better, but also volunteers who make the 3D printed parts for free, also within our community. And I think that's extremely powerful, especially for developing countries where people often can't afford prosthetics, that with 3D printing it suddenly becomes accessible. And the community behind it, of course. And then there are also 3D printing cars nowadays. So this is Local Motors, it's a US company who's creating cars together with the community. So they open source the designs of the car, so everyone could be a part of it, help make it better. And they envision a future where cars are just 3D printed very close to where you live. So yeah, I think at some point I should also get involved. And for me, in Dutch they say the circle is round then. Yeah, so that's my presentation. Thanks.